From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Good Wednesday morning. It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Thank you for starting your day with us. Our top story this morning, Billings police are led on a chase through town after a shooting on the south side. Just before midnight, an officer saw two people in a vehicle shooting at another car at the intersection of South 28th and 8th Avenue South. The vehicle drove off, leading authorities on a chase that went all the way to the west end and back to the south side. The suspects eventually crashed at 5th Avenue South and South 34th Street. Police then arrested the driver, a 30-year-old man, and his passenger, a 21-year-old woman. So far, there is no word on if anyone was injured in the shooting. Well, for the first time in 16 years, Billings voters said yes to a public safety mill levy, providing millions to the city's police and fire departments. Voters overwhelmingly supported the levy, with almost 68% agreeing it was time for an upgrade. It replaces the old levy, which passed in 2004 and was capped at just over $8 million. The new levy will generate about $12 million and adds about $4.75 a month in taxes on a home valued at $211,000. Police Chief Rich St. John said he'll walk into work relieved this morning, ready to tackle violent crime, the city's methamphetamine problem, and other issues plaguing the city. Mayor Bill Cole also weighed in, but said this is only the beginning.
This is very, very sweet. It's also a bit sober because our greater needs for more police officers, more firefighters, more 911 operators and prosecutors and space for all of them haven't gone away. We still need all of those things, and so it's probably inevitable we're going to have to come back to the voters at some point in the near future to ask whether they will approve even greater spending.
This levy will help the city with its 2021 budget, which included $750,000 in cuts between the police, fire, and parks departments. Turning now to crime news, McKinley Elementary School was placed on lockdown because a parent threatened to return to the school with a gun. Police arrested the man on school property yesterday afternoon, but no weapon was found. Authorities are still investigating and have not released the name of the suspect or what charges he's facing. Now it's time to turn our attention to weather. Rob is here for that. And what's going on today, Rob?
Well, Ed McIntosh taking the day off, and we still have some smoke out there in the environment. I noticed this morning driving in, it almost looked like fog down Grand Avenue. That actually was smoke, and so we're sitting at a clear sky right now. You wouldn't know it looking outside, as the sun will be coming up a little bit later on. You'll still see the telltale smoke layer here in Billings. Winds out of the north at about 8 miles an hour. And once again, smoke dominates our weather headlines. Air quality concerns continue. We were downgraded a little bit earlier this morning. That's improved somewhat, so it'll be on again, off again from the unhealthy status. Closer to average temperatures because of a backdoor cold front that moved through, and still dry until we hit the weekend. We're hoping by this weekend we'll see some significant showers, maybe an isolated thunderstorm. You notice the Billings area right now rated just the first level of unhealthy air. It was the second level, shy of hazardous, a few hours ago, and of course it's unhealthy to hazardous out in portions of western Montana where air quality warnings are still in play from the Lewistown area, central Montana, out toward the west. Those will be expiring hopefully about 9 o'clock this morning. But again, with the concentration of smoke that we have, it's entirely possible that we'll see those extended beyond 9 o'clock this morning. We'll just sort of have to wait and see. High today will be 77, by the way.
All right,
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'll get back to the news. Thanks, Rob.
Very good.
In California, the reward for information about the shooter who opened fire on two Los Angeles County deputies this past weekend has grown to $275,000. As authorities search for the suspect, the victims are expected to survive in what officials are calling a miracle. CNN's John Lawrence brings us the latest.
Bravery under fire. Video shows a female Los Angeles County deputy applying a tourniquet to her partner shortly after the two were ambushed and shot several times Saturday by a lone gunman.
There is no place in our society for the violence that we saw. Blessed be the peacekeepers.
The deputies were both in intensive care Tuesday after suffering wounds to their heads and arms.
There's definitely going to be a very painful path for them, but thankfully no vital organs, and so their prognosis is good.
As the deputies are hospitalized, one local activist voicing support for the act of violence.
This right here lightens my heart, right? Because You know, the sheriff department has murdered too many of our brothers and sisters. This is a start of retribution. Then I think this is a very good start.
That's a stance denounced by officials.
There is no excuse for that. There is no excuse for the violence against the officers, period.
We have bad apples in every organization, just as we do in law enforcement. We hold them accountable. I'm not going to tolerate anybody crossing the line, but at the same time, I'm not going to throw out the overwhelming majority of deputies who are doing the right thing for the right reason.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
And meanwhile, Louisville, Kentucky officials say the city will pay its largest settlement ever in a police misconduct case. $12 million will go to the family of Breonna Taylor, the young black woman who was shot to death by police at her home in March. Taylor's death has sparked more than 100 days of protest. Louisville officials say they will also make procedural changes to their police department, including search warrant reforms, and social workers will be added to some 911 calls. The Trump administration continues to make progress as they work to normalize relations between Israel and the rest of the Middle East. Yesterday at the White House, leaders from Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and the Kingdom of Bahrain signed a deal to work together in the future. Under the Abraham Accord, the two Arab countries will exchange embassies and ambassadors with Israel. They will also work together in areas like tourism, healthcare, and security. In exchange, Israel has agreed to suspend plans to annex parts of the West Bank. Hurricane Sally just made landfall onshore in Alabama and the Florida Panhandle. The Category 2 storm is packing winds of up to 100 miles per hour while drenching the region with heavy rain and cutting power to tens of thousands. Tornado warnings were also in effect at times overnight. CBS's Nancy Chin is in Florida with the latest.
Hurricane Sally is battering parts of the Gulf Coast with heavy rains and strong winds.
Gulf Shores, Alabama getting slammed by Hurricane Sally.
Power crews were out overnight trying to minimize outages. The slow-moving storm destroyed docks in Pensacola Beach, Florida on Tuesday, with massive waves threatening others. Protective dunes in Dolphin Island, Alabama, washed away.
And everybody ain't like me.
Just north of Mobile, Robert Martin was out enjoying the weather, but had his sights set on better days.
After the storm, I'm just looking through and looking at the weekend. It's going to be sunny and 75, nice beach down here in Mobile, Alabama.
Governor Kay Ivey warned of historic flooding.
Those who live on the Gulf Coast are all too familiar with Mother Nature's wrath. We still hope and pray that Sally will not bring that type of pain and heartache.
You can see how powerful these winds are right now and how heavy this rainfall is as Hurricane Sally moves onshore. It was moving so slowly, just 2 miles per hour at points, allowing it time to strengthen as it moved toward the coastline here. Originally taking aim at Mississippi, the storm turned east, taking greater aim at Alabama and the Florida Panhandle.
Sally's all over the place.
Residents in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi took advantage of the near miss while keeping those in the path of Sally in their thoughts.
Just because we're not going to, be the direct hitter in the path, that means somebody else is.
Because Sally is moving so slowly, forecasters say up to 30 inches of rain may fall in some areas. Nancy Chen, CBS News, Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
Experts predict the financial toll from Sally could be as high as $2 or $3 billion. Huge wildfires still burning in the western U.S. are prompting serious air quality concerns. Officials are warning the air in states hardest hit by the flames will likely remain toxic for days or even weeks after the fires are extinguished. This, as a new report shows, 97% of fires that threatened homes since 1992 were human-caused. 59 million homes sit within wildland urban areas and at some point were less than a mile from a wildfire. In campaign news, President Trump answered some tough questions on a wide range of topics in a town hall last night. CBS's Laura Podesta shows us some highlights and what his opponent, Joe Biden, also had to say yesterday.
President Trump says he wouldn't have done anything differently to fight the coronavirus pandemic. One of the headlines to come out of last night's town hall style interview anchored by ABC News' George Stephanopoulos.
I'm the one that closed up our country. I closed it up long before any of the experts thought I should.
He also defended recent recordings of himself with journalist Bob Woodward, during which the president is heard saying he wants to downplay the severity of the virus in order to not cause a panic.
I didn't downplay it. I actually, in many ways, I upplayed it in terms of action. My action was very strong.
The president also defended law enforcement when questioned about the recent deaths of black men and women at the hands of police.
I can only say this, that the police in this country have done generally a great job. There are crimes, there are problems, and there are chokers. They choke under pressure.
Earlier in the day, his Democratic rival Joe Biden spoke to Hispanic voters in Florida, bringing up the recent Atlantic article that said President Trump had disparaged veterans.
He gets in front of a camera and crows about how much he has done for veterans and then turns around and insults our service members and fallen heroes when the camera's off. Calls them suckers and losers.
I never made those statements. They were never made by me.
The first debate between the president and former vice president is less than 2 weeks away on September 29th. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
The 1.5-hour debate will be held in Cleveland, Ohio. Fox News anchor Chris Wallace will moderate. In campus news, enrollment is way down at MSUB this semester, and the pandemic is likely to blame. Around 400 fewer students are attending classes compared to last year. That's about a 10% drop. School officials believe many potential attendees chose to stay home instead of braving the campus experience. MSUB also caters to many high school students choosing dual enrollment at the university. Officials said with an early start this year, many of those individuals didn't have enough time to choose college courses. Well, of course, it's not only colleges that are negatively affected by the pandemic. It's affecting business owners in all sectors. MTN's Keely Van Middendorp introduces us to a Montana catering company seeing just 1/3 of its normal business in 2020.
Since early March, Brian McKinney has been working to thaw his catering business, which has been chipped away by pandemic-related cancellations.
You know, there was about 6 months there where I did no events at all.
McKinney says he's not only lost money, but also precious product with each cancellation.
Ice is perishable, doesn't last forever. And there's been some events that have been canceled that it's just been a loss.
Now, McKinney says the pandemic has put a freeze on his catering events, but that's all about to change.
You know, just have high hopes that things will get back to normal pretty quick.
All Cool Ice and Catering is seeing smaller weddings and events begin to book again.
One of the weddings that I have going on, the groom is a Star Trek fan.
McKinney says residents' worries are slowly melting away as Montanans continue through phase 2 of Governor Bullock's reopening the Big Sky plan.
But I also think that people are ready to start socializing and start having events. They are consolidating to make those numbers manageable and work for them.
While the business has been hibernating over the pandemic, McKinney says others are on thin ice.
There are folks all over Great Falls and all over the nation that are experiencing the same challenges.
He says shopping local will make or break more businesses as consumers look to the holiday season.
If you're planning any events and you can use a local provider, you know, it's going to help them keep their doors open.
In Great Falls, Keely Van Middendorp, MTN News.
Thank you so much.